Hello everyone, welcome to Guidance IAS, and today we'll start with our current affairs for first week of April. So without wasting any time, let's just directly get into it. And the first topic of our today's discussion belongs to polity, right? A very, very important topic, Article 356. So as usual, we will be understanding the contextual part first, and then we'll be understanding the static part of it as to what emergency provisions are, that which is what Article 356 is all about. We'll also be dealing with what are the implications, what are the different implications of imposing Article 356, as well as what are the parliamentary approvals which are needed for the imposition of Article 356. So before getting into the static portion of it, let's just understand why it was in the news and why we are reading it and why is it important for our examination perspective. So the context is that recently in West Bengal, you all must have seen that in West Bengal, there was a demand of president's rule, that president rule should be imposed in West Bengal, because there was some incident which happened wherein a lot of people were killed and burned alive. So there were these incidences. That is why the government or the people of that state demanded that president rule should be imposed in West Bengal. Okay. But what is more important for our examination perspective is to understand what president's rule is all about. Before that, I would like all of you to take into a very important static topic of our polity, which is emergency or the emergency provisions, right? Which is present in which part? Part 18th of our constitution, which deals from Article 352 to 360, right? And in this part, which is part 18, we have three types of emergencies, and why there was a need of this these emergency provisions, definitely to protect the sovereignty, integrity of our nation, and of course to provide us the security, to provide our country with a security. Now there are three types. As we are talking about emergency provisions, there are three types you must understand. I'll just briefly tell you about all the three types and their important provisions. We won't go into the detail of emergency provision. We won't be reading the entire chapter, of course, but definitely I'll touch upon every important aspect of this particular topic. So this first one is Article 352 itself. Next is Article 356, and then we have Article 360. Okay. So Article 352 deals with national emergency, right? It deals with what? National emergency. Now, the next question could be arises that under which conditions, or you can say it arises, or it gets proclaimed or imposed when either there is a war or external aggression, right? Or there is armed rebellion. Now this armed rebellion, you all must be knowing, this was the term which got introduced after 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. It was not there before. Before 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978, we used to use the word internal disturbance, right? We all know this, internal disturbance hum use karte the, but after 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, we started using the word armed rebellion, because internal disturbance was a little vague word. So in order to standardize this word and the meaning of it, we started using armed rebellion. Now coming back to our today's topic, which is Article 356, or we also call it constitutional emergency or president's rule. President's rule, right? We will be dealing with this in little detail, so do not worry. I'll be coming to this in a little while. Before that, I would want to tell you that Article 360 deals with the financial emergency. It has not been imposed in our country yet, but still important for our examination. Okay. Now, as I was telling you that we will be dealing with Article 356 in a bit detail. So the first question which could arise is that what are the grounds of the imposition of Article 356 or the President's rule? So there are two grounds on which it could be imposed. First ground is mentioned in Article 356 itself, and another is in Article 365. Article 356, what does it say? It says, Article 356, it says that president of our country, president is empowered to proclaim the emergency, or this president's rule only under Article 356, if he is satisfied that, you need to remember, if he is satisfied. Now the satisfied word is really, really important. I am going to tell you in a while that why this this word satisfied is important, what is the significance of it, and what are the implications of this word. So we'll deal with it, don't worry. If he means the president, if the president is satisfied that the state is not running according to the provisions given in our constitution. So if he is satisfied, then he can impose the president's rule under Article 356. What does Article 365 says? 365 says that if 365 is little different, and you need to understand the substantial difference between the two articles, which is 356 and 365. So 365 says that whenever a state fail, whenever a state fails to comply with the directions. Kindly pay attention on each and every word. Whenever a state fails to comply with the directions given by the central government or the union government, directions given by the union government, this emergency could be imposed. Right? So I hope both the conditions are clear to you. ठीक है, दोनों ही चीजें आपको क्लियर हो गई होंगी. Okay, now the next question we were talking about was, what are the implications of it? What are the implications of it? Suppose in a state X, president's rule got imposed. Now definitely कुछ implications होंगे. The major implications today I'm going to talk about. So once it get imposed, after imposition, you can say there will be first, there will be no council of ministers, right? And the state will come under the direct control of the central government. The state will come under the direct control. Direct control, you have to remember. Direct control of the union government. Right? So these are some of the major implications you can think of when you talk about the imposition of president's rule. The third thing we had to deal with was the parliamentary approval, which is needed during the proclamation of this emergency. Okay? So what is the parliamentary proclamation? So again, there are 2-3 points I'd like to tell you here. While imposing the president's rule, so it must be approved by both the houses of the parliament. Both the houses, which is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. So it should be approved by both the houses of the parliament. Okay? Both the houses of the parliament. And if we talk about, you can say both the houses of the parliament, अगर हम ड्यूरेशन की बात करें, आई मीन नॉट दैट ड्यूरेशन जितने टाइम में वो इम्पोज होगी, बट डेफिनेटली इट शुड बी पास्ड विद इन 2 months from the date of issuance. ठीक है, it should be passed within this 2 months. So this 2 month time is very important for you to remember. This is a fact, very important for a prelims examination especially. So this should be approved. And if we talk about which type of majority is needed, so it would be a simple majority. Simple majority would be needed, right? This was the basic idea about what? About the parliamentary approval which is needed for the proclamation of emergency under Article 356. Now, if you talk about the duration per se, duration of the emergency, so generally, जो हम approval देते हैं, so we give it for 6 months initially. We give the approval, the parliament gives the approval for 6 months initially. Initially, you have to remember this word. Initially 6 month का देते हैं, but maximum it can be extended for or extended to 3 years, right? 3 years every 6 months. What is the meaning of this every 6 months? That every 6 months you need to have this permission to get it get it approved by the houses of the parliament. So एक बारी में ये 6 महीने के लिए लग सकता है, but the maximum period it can get extended to is 3 years. I hope these points are clear to you now. The context is clear. Things happened in West Bengal. That is why we needed it. What is president's rule, and not just president's rule. I also told you a little bit briefly about all the types. I mean, Article 352 also we had discussed, then 56, and then financial emergency also we had discussed. We had also discussed the implications, and finally we had also discussed the what are the kind of approvals it needed, and what is the exact duration of this type of emergency. Now, there is one very important thing. A while ago, I was telling you about a word which is satisfied. Satisfied. I was telling you that if president is satisfied, he can proclaim the emergency. Now, this satisfied is a very interesting word because, and I'll tell you how. You all must have heard of 38th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1975. In 38th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1975, what happened? That this judgment was given that the certification of the president will not be challenged in any court of law. Any court of law and on any grounds. Which means that the president if the president will be satisfied, he can impose the emergency and his decision will not be challenged in and cannot be challenged in any court on any grounds. This was given in 38th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1975, but definitely it has an issue. It has an issue. It is very much subjective. It can be with a lot of biases. Okay? That is why to overcome this this deficit, we came up with 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978, a very important Constitutional Amendment Act. A lot of things were changed in this 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Lakshmikant ke piche there is an entire list of 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act and 44th Constitutional Amendment Act as to what all were the things which got changed under these two acts. You have to make sure that you memorize all of them, especially actually it is for both of your examination, prelims and mains, but at times direct statements, are picked up from those amendment acts, and directly they ask you in your prelims examination. So make sure that you have those amendments on your tips. 44th Constitutional Amendment mein kya hua? That it says that this decision of president is not beyond judicial review, right, is not beyond judicial review, which means that now it can be challenged in any court of law on definitely the prescribed grounds, but definitely it can be challenged. The judicial review iska ho sakta hai. ठीक है? I hope this point is also clear to you now, right? If you look at that side, we've covered almost all the points mentioned here. We've covered as to what parliamentary approval is needed. We've done about Article 356. We've also done ki 6 months ka duration hota hai, and then maximum could extend to 3 years. And then we've also talked about 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, wherein it brought it under the judicial scrutiny, right? So that was all about imposition of Article 356. I hope it is clear to you. Moving ahead with our next topic. So, yeah, just Hanji. So the next topic we have is fundamental duties must be enforced. So there was a petition in the Supreme Court which says that the fundamental duties, along with the fundamental rights, which are already enforceable in the court of law. So this petition urged that fundamental duties should also be made enforceable. Let us first understand the contextual part of it, because that has always been our approach. We'll continue with the same approach. Context hum samajhte hain, then we'll move on to the static portion of it, wherein I'll be making you understand where exactly it lies in the Constitution and what exactly are the provisions or what are the duties and everything about it, right? So let us first try and understand the context. Attorney General recently had objected to a writ petition. I have just told you that there was a writ petition which got filed in the Supreme Court, which asked or which pleaded for the fundamental duties to be enforceable in the court of law. So this was the precise context. Now, what is more important for us is to understand about the fundamental duties. Fundamental duties, along with that, will also be seeing very, very important two judgments, I'll be dealing with them in detail. Don't worry, but we'll be dealing with these two important judgments, very important for your mains examination. Okay? And lastly, we will be also understanding the rationale behind the petition. Whosoever filed the petition, what was the rationale behind that petition? Okay, so first thing first, let's see the static portion of it. Fundamental duties. Fundamental duties. First of all, fundamental duties, this is a very, very important chapter. Okay? Fundamental rights, again, the most fundamental right in parliament, I feel, are the most important chapters of Lakshmikant. Unme se bahut sare questions aate hain, but fundamental duties and DPSPs are also very, very important part for our examination perspective. So you have to do this chapter by heart. Okay? First thing, we all must be knowing that it was not initially mentioned in our constitution. When we framed our constitution, fundamental duties were not there. Okay? But in 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, it got added. And we had to add a new article for this, which is Article 51A. Okay? So this you have to remember. Every factual point I'm going to write here, you have to remember all of them. And it got added from on the recommendation of this. I'm going to tell you a very important name of the committee. Recommendation of a very, very important committee, Swaran Singh Committee. Swaran Singh Committee. Whenever a question asked, even in your mains examination, about fundamental duties, do not forget to mention this committee, to mention this commission, Swaran Singh Committee. And even in your prelims examination and even the state PSCs that directly ask you these questions, that Swaran Singh Committee is related to what, whether it is related to DPSP or fundamental duties or preamble or fundamental rights or what. So it is related with fundamental duties. This is one. Now, if you ask how many fundamental duties are there mentioned in our constitution, so 11 fundamental duties are there which are mentioned in our constitution. Today, what you have to do, you have to go to Lakshmikant and read all the fundamental duties, and you have to memorize them. Okay, yaad karne hai wo. Okay, then a very important point which is related to today's context also, that is they are non-justiciable. They are non-justiciable. That is they are not, they cannot be enforced by the court of law. So that is non-justiciable, and that's precisely our today's context also. And that is precisely the petitioner had to say, that they should be the fundamental duties should be enforceable in the court of law. Okay, so I hope the static portion is clear to you. Now, as I was telling you, that the petition says that there should be some legal sanction should be given to the fundamental duties, and it is not that we never talked about giving legality or making them enforceable in the court of law. The fundamental duties I'm talking about, and the very important examples are, the first example is Ranganath Mishra case of 2003, wherein it talked about not just giving them a legal sanction, but it also talked about giving them a social sanction. ठीक है, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हमने legality के बारे में, इनके बारे में कभी नहीं बात करी. To give them a legal status, we talked about it. Similarly, in the next judgment, which is Justice J.S. Verma Committee of 1999, we again talked of giving them a legal status. So these are the two examples you can quote in your mains examination whenever there is a question which is being asked about giving some legal status to the fundamental duties, because it has been it is a debatable topic that fundamental rights are enforceable, but why not fundamental duties? We should also make fundamental duties a legal, we should provide them with a legal framework, or they should also be justiciable. Okay, because duties also are kind of our social responsibility towards our nation. So if we are not fulfilling our duties only, we do not have any right to enjoy the fundamental rights also. Okay? And this is precisely the intention or the rationale behind whosoever filed this petition. And the petitioner gave the example of Bhagavad Gita, wherein we all know Arjuna, wherein we all know Lord Krishna gave this lesson to the Arjuna of, of fulfilling or taking his duties in his mind that with that focus, and he called it as kartavya, which is similar to the duties. So keeping in mind the example of Bhagavad Gita, the petitioner was of the same opinion that we should be socially responsible towards our nation, and only then we are allowed to enjoy the fundamental rights also, right? And if we are not fulfilling the fundamental duties, the person whosoever is breaching the fundamental duties should be punished. But again, there are so many things, like for example, there is one fundamental duties which is developing scientific temper, okay? But we cannot really punish someone for not developing scientific temper. So definitely there are points for this not being legally enforceable until now. So that's a different point. तो आपको दोनों ही चीजें दिमाग में रखनी पड़ेंगी as to what are the points we can quote when a question is asked कि हाँ इनको हमें legally enforceable कर देना चाहिए, and what are the points which can hinder its legality or the legal or the enforceability. Okay, so both the points you have to take in mind and write your answers. All right, so this was all about fundamental duties. I hope you all must have understood about the contextual as well as the static part of fundamental duties. Up next we have Satluj Yamuna link canal. So first thing first, let us see what is the contextual part of it. So Haryana Assembly has passed a resolution wherein Haryana government is of the opinion that this Satluj Yamuna link canal project should be completed as soon as possible, so that Haryana can get a share of can get share of its water from Punjab. Now you all must be wondering as to why it has to take water from Punjab. So for that, you need to look at the historical background of it. Historical background mein it says that we all know 1966 mein Haryana got divided from Punjab. ठीक है 1966 में and that was the time when this entire thing started because a lot of things were there which got divided which got distributed to both the states and river water was one of them so Punjab basically Punjab ne shuru se hi Punjab has opposed this or Punjab did not Punjab has opposed giving what waters or sharing waters of Ravi and Bias and Punjab is of the opinion that we all know that Punjab Haryana and this northern plains we grow water intensive crop there is already you know the water level is already very low there was a report which said that 79% states may the water has been really exploited already ठीक है so Punjab has always of this opinion only that we already have less water so we won't be able to share it but again however center in 1976 what it said center issued a notification wherein the center said that allocating that notification allocates Haryana 3.5 million acre feet out of undivided Punjab का जो total water share था which was 7.2 MAF. Now then 76 के बाद there was a reassessment which took place in 1981 wherein what happened the water flowing down Bias and Ravi was estimated again at 17.17 MAF, out of which 4.22 was allocated to Punjab, and rest, 3.5 was to given Haryana was given to Haryana, and 8.6 was given to Rajasthan. So there were three states which were involved. If we talk about the canal itself, so there was a tripartite, which means any legal agreement which happens between three parties. Okay, so this was a agreement which happened between Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan over the distribution of the water. The Satluj Yamuna canal जो है उसी time पे propose की गई थी to make this canal which would be of 214, that is 214 kilometers long canal which would be connecting the Satluj and Yamuna rivers. I'm sure बहुत सारे अभी भी डाउट्स रह गए होंगे एंड फॉर दैट लेट मी टेक यू टू दिस map of or this picture wherein you will be seeing this is Satluj, river Satluj, and here you will see river Yamuna, and this is the canal I am talking about. So this would be the canal जिसमें से we know 214 kilometers we have to construct, out of which 92 kilometers we've already completed, but this is the portion we are talking about connecting it. So we will be connecting the Satluj from the Yamuna with a Satluj Yamuna canal, or this link you can talk about. If you talk about certain dams over Satluj, so Govind Sagar is situated here, Bhakra you will see here, Nangal you will see here. Apart from this is the capital city, and we've talked about this link. Okay, so I'm sure things are clear to you now in a better way, right? We have already discussed about the Punjab's demand and the Haryana demand. Punjab exactly is of the same opinion that we already do not have sufficient amount of water, so they are little, they are restricting themselves to share it with some other state, and Haryana again is demanding the same, that we need water and Punjab should do what it promised. So both states have their own opinion and their own logic, but that's the issue you need to remember. Up next, we have the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Rights Act. Again, a very important act, and since it is a topic which is related with the environment also, with the tribals also, with the forest also, which makes this topic very, very important for both the examination prelims as well as mains. So I would want all of you to kindly pay attention here. Recently, what had happened, if you talk about the contextual part of it, recently what had happened, there was a law that stresses that original inhabitants या फिर जो traditional forest dwellers हैं and Adivasis, they must not be evicted from the tiger reserves, right? They should not lose their livelihood. इसी के लिए certain act was passed, right? Certain acts were passed. Actually, इससे पहले भी, it's not that there was no act which was existing before this. There was an act of 2006 Forest Right Act. It is very famously known as Forest Right Act of 2006, which talks about the rights of the forest dwellers, the rights of the Adivasis or the tribal people. Okay. Apart from this, there are certain things which were included in the act, like for example, first was title right. Title right is the ownership right. Right? What is title right? Title right is the ownership right, giving ownership right to the tribals or to the farmers which cultivate that particular land. तो उन्हीं को वो ownership rights भी मिलने चाहिए. Use rights means giving rights to the tribals or to the farmers which has been cultivating that land for years and years altogether. So giving those people the rights to use the minor forest produce of that particular area. The third right was relief and development right. Relief and development right talks about, suppose there is a eviction or there is a displacement of tribals from that particular area, तो उनका जो है rehabilitation should be proper. उनका time पे और अच्छे से rehabilitation होना चाहिए. This is what relief and development right talks about. The next is forest management right. Forest management right is the same, only that whatever we are doing, we also have to take care of the forest and its produce. All right. Next is, what is the eligibility criteria? How can we decide that a particular section, a particular group of people should be, or you can say, should be categorized as forest dwellers or tribals? So for that, there are three conditions we have prescribed. The first condition is that he or she or that particular group should be or should belong to scheduled tribe in the area where the right is claimed. So he or she or the group should belong to this ST. Okay? And then the second condition was that he should be resided, or उनका जो residence है in that particular area, in that particular forest land, should be prior to 2005, or this is the date which has been mentioned कि 13 दिसंबर 2005 से पहले के वो वहां पर reside करे हुए होने चाहिए. This is the second condition. Third condition is उनका जो livelihood है should be solely dependent upon the forest produce only. So the livelihood need should get completed through the forest produce only, which is being produced in that particular area. So these are the three conditions through which we can identify or categorize a group as to what the forest dwellers or tribals are, right? Or we properly call it as forest dwelling scheduled tribe, FDST, right? Kindly remember the name. Kindly remember this name of forest dwelling scheduled tribe. All right. Okay, so that was all about this topic. Up next, we have Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, a very, very important topic. काफ़ी ज़्यादा news में होता है. A lot of time you must have come across such news that so-and-so person got arrested under UAPA, so-and-so person got punished under UAPA. So it is same. What has happened recently, Umar Khalid, you all must have heard of this name. So he was arrested under UAPA in Delhi riots. CAA पे वो protest कर रहे थे and he was arrested, and that is why it was in news. But for our examination perspective, we need to understand the static portion of it. So what is UAPA, or what is Unlawful Activities Prevention Act? First of all, it got passed in 1967. Okay? And in simple words, if I tell you what is it in simple words, it is basically what? It is basically to prevent the unlawful activities associations in India. This is what it aims for, and it gives absolute power to the central government, and sometimes it gets criticized because of this also, but yeah, it gives absolute power to the central government that they can include any activity under the UAPA activity. ठीक है, वो किसी भी activity को center has this right, center is empowered that they're allowed to include any activity they feel is against the national security as a unlawful activity. Okay, and it has death penalty and life imprisonment as the highest punishment. Apart from this, there are 2 3 points key, not just the Indian nationals but also the foreign nationals can be punished through this. ठीक है, they can be charged. Apart from this, it's not कि India के territory के अंदर ही crime commit हुआ हो. If anybody is committing, or if there is an offender in the same manner, even if the crime is committed on the foreign land outside India, ठीक है, तभी भी we can arrest or we can charge the person under this particular act. ठीक है. Now there is this one very important thing, which is amendment of 2019. There was an amendment under UAPA Act in 2019. UAPA 2019 Amendment Act of 2019. What happened in 2019? A very, very important and a very critical and a very crucial thing happened in 2019. Please pay attention here. Initially, or before 2019, what used to happen, that we used to ban the entire organization, or we used to put the entire organization only into the UAPA Act, or we used to charge the entire organization. ठीक है, पूरे organization को हम UAPA के अंडर charge करते थे. ठीक है. So prior to this amendment of 2019, it used to be about the entire organization or the whole organization. There are many terrorist organizations we know. ठीक है, तो पूरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को चार्ज किया जाता था पहले 2019 के अमेंडमेंट से पहले. बट नाउ आफ्टर दिस अमेंडमेंट, even an individual, please pay attention here, even an individual can be charged under UAPA Act. ठीक है, and this is very, very important act, a very crucial act which came in 2019, right? That is why Umar Khalid was charged under this act. Okay. Then next important amendment was the Director General of NIA. You all must have heard of this body, NIA, National Investigation Agency. So Director General of NIA was given charge that he can attach or seize properties under this act. Along with this, NIA में ही some other officers which holds a rank of above inspector. If any officer is holding a rank of above inspector level, he is allowed to do what? He is allowed to investigate the cases under UAPA. So these are the 3 points which got introduced in 2019. Amongst them, the most important is this individual wala clause, wherein organization say we also included an individual person under the UAPA Act. I hope the amendments are clear to you now. Okay? So this amendment is clear to you now. That's the entire topic about UAPA, the contextual part of it, and I hope आपको थोड़ा सा इसका static portion भी समझ आया होगा. Up next we have Weapon of Mass Destruction Amendment Bill 2022. Before going into the context of it and the other aspects of this topic, I would want all of you to understand the meaning of weapon of mass destruction. As the name suggests, any weapon which has the capacity to cause the death and the destruction at a massive scale is called weapon of mass destruction. Easy to understand? Okay. Now let us see the context. So recently this bill has been passed in the Lok Sabha, and that is why it was in news. We'll understand what are the provisions of the bill and what were the changes which is introduced into this bill and which was not there in the previous bill. So it's not that this is the first time we are bringing this bill. Prior to this, there was a bill in 2005 wherein it says, or it talked about that there should not be, or where that 2005 wala bill put a ban on the manufacturing of the weapons of mass destruction. Okay? But but it was only limited to the manufacturing part of weapons of mass destruction. It did not talk about financing of weapons of mass destruction. Okay? So to overcome that credibility or to overcome that deficit, we had to come up with this new amendment act wherein we increased the ambit of 2005 wala bill. Okay? And now we have introduced the financing part also, that you cannot even finance the weapons of mass destruction. Okay? Don't worry, I'm going to repeat everything. Let's just see here. As I've told you that 2005 mein, there was an act which came, okay, and it described weapons of mass destruction as, so these weapons could be biological, it could be chemical, or it could be nuclear weapons. Biological means, like for example, suppose agar kisi ne intentionally, we do not know, there are no proofs yet, there are no proof yet, but we do not know, but let's suppose if somebody intentionally had spreaded the coronavirus, so that is an example of biological weapon of mass destruction. Okay? So not just biological, chemical wale bhi or nuclear weapons bhi, they all comes under the category of weapons of mass destruction only. Okay? And India has signed and ratified these biological weapon convention of 1972 and 1992 Chemical Weapons Convention on 1992. However, it has not signed the treaties which regulate the use and the proliferation of these weapons, which is NPT and CTBT. Don't worry, I'll tell you. We're going to deal with everything. But first, a brief distinction between the Act of 2000, the Act of 2005 and the Act of 2022. So, यहाँ पर क्या था 2005 में the ambit of this act was very narrow. ठीक है? We only included, or we only, you can say, we only put ban on manufacturing of weapons of mass destruction, wherein what we did in 2022, we definitely, manufacturing was already banned, तो इसका तो कोई सवाल ही नहीं है. Plus, we also put a ban on financing of weapons of mass destruction. Right? Now you cannot even finance it through any means, through any channel. This is the major difference, and this is the only point we had to make this amendment for. We had to bring this amendment for only for this point, क्योंकि financing वाला part अभी तक missing था. So to include this financing वाला part, we had to come up with this amendment. All right? So two things we were talking about, na, NPT and CTBT. NPT, we all know, NPT is a non-proliferation treaty. Okay? It is non-proliferation treaty. The very important fact is whether India has signed it or not. So no, India has not signed it. UPSC has asked questions already on this. It might ask you again, so you have to remember it came into force in 1970. This year also you can remember. Apart from this, we've already seen that India is not a member, and this international treaty का जो objective है is to prevent the spread of what? If it is a non-proliferation treaty, तो इसका वही होगा ना, to not to or to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. Right? Nuclear weapons का spread नहीं होना चाहिए. That's the only aim this NPT treaty holds. Next is CTBT, or Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban. CTBT BT, it stands for Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. What are certain points which you have to remember about this treaty is, first, it got, or you can say, got adopted by UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, in 1996. ठीक है, 1996 में इसको अडॉप्ट किया गया था, while NPT got adopted in 1970, or it came into force in 1970, and this one in 1996. Apart from that, it intends to ban all the nuclear explosion. ठीक है, it intends to ban all the nuclear explosions happening anywhere, or you can say everywhere. Nuclear explosions everywhere, right? And that is what it precisely aims for. If we talk about it in Indian perspective, so India, along with Pakistan and even North Korea, these are the very three famous countries. Whenever we read about CTBT, ये तीन countries के बारे में हम पढ़ते ही हैं, that these three countries have not signed it. This not word is very important. We all have not signed it, right? So this was about NPT and CTBT. Moving ahead with our next topic. Okay, the 2-3 points are still left. What was the need for the amendment? Though I have already covered the need and everything, हम need already cover कर चुके हैं, ठीक है? But I would again like to repeat this. The first is finances को आज तक हमने cover नहीं किया था in our previous act. So to include to ban the financing, we had to come up with this. This was the need. Second, to give more teeth to the government, precisely to the central government, to act against the terror, or to act against the terror funding. We had to come up with this type of amendment. So it's again the same, the financial part, and to give the central government or a government the more powers to handle or to tackle the menace of terrorism. All right then. Moving ahead with the next topic, AFSPA. Armed Forces Special Power Act. काफी ज़्यादा न्यूज़ में रहता है, ठीक है? Hence, it becomes very important for our exam also. Let us directly come and understand the contextual part of it. So, AFSPA, which gives a sweeping power to the armed forces. So, in simple words, if I tell you what AFSPA is, so basically it gives the absolute power to the armed forces so that it can protect the disturbed areas. Okay? Now, what are those disturbed areas? We'll be dealing with that also, but let us first see the context. So recently what has happened, there has been a fully or partially withdrawn, this AFSPA has been partially or fully withdrawn from some parts of the northeastern states, that is from Assam, from Nagaland and from Manipur, but still it remains in various parts, ठीक है? तो जम्मू कश्मीर में, अरुणाचल प्रदेश में, तो इन स्टेट्स में ये अभी भी है, but we've recently removed it from some parts, either fully or partially. That is the context. And AFSPA, I have already told you what does it means. It gives the power to the army. ठीक है? Army को ये दे देता है so that it can maintain what? Maintain the public order in disturbed areas. Now you must know as to what disturbed areas is. So disturbed area, कोई भी area disturb हो सकता है because of various reasons. That reason could be, those reason could be because of the religious clashes or the racial clashes or the language clashes, again, or the regional groups में कोई clash हो रहा हो, caste and communities के basis पर कोई clashes चल रहा हो in a particular state or a particular area. So all of these will come under the category of disturbed areas, and these are the bases or these are the grounds on which a disturbance or the clashes could happen. Okay? Now, next is why decision to withdraw AFSPA from the parts of Northeast is significant. That now that we have either fully or partially withdrawn it, now what is the significance of it? it is very important actually. Why? See, every or any topic we are reading, there are two aspects of every topic. ठीक है, उसके कुछ positives होते हैं, कुछ negatives होते हैं, but we do not have to see one side of it. We, as a civil services aspirant, we have to see and we have to take both the aspects parallelly, और एक neutral conclusion पे हमें पहुंचना होता है, right? तो अगर हम इसका positive plus point देखें, so it gives power to the army so that it can maintain a it can maintain peace in a particular area, but at the same time वो powers का कई बारी misuse भी होता है, and that's precisely the disadvantage of this. And the biggest you can say I don't know what to call it, but people are really suffering because of it. People had to go through a lot of psychological trauma because of this act. So that's again some of those negative those disadvantageous parts of AFSPA. But coming back to our topic, why is it important? Why is it important that we should or we withdraw it? First was, it will reduce the alienation. You all must be knowing that northeastern states, especially northeastern states, has been under the shadow of this AFSPA from almost 60 years now. ठीक है, more than that, in fact more than that. ठीक है, तो अगर किसी पर्टिकुलर स्टेट में हम एक पर्टिकुलर एक्ट इतने सालों तक लगा के रखेंगे, it gives that different or alien feeling to that particular state, right? Because this act is not there in the rest of the country. It is only there in the northeastern, and of course to the Jammu Kashmir wala region also, but mainly in the northeastern region. So it gives that alien wala feeling to the northeastern people. So if this will not be there or will be partially withdrawn, so this alienation wala feeling will not be there in the northeastern people, because they are also our part only. So that alienation wala feeling should not be there. We are one as a country. Next is demilitarize the region. Of course, this will lift a lot of restrictions present in that particular area because of AFSPA. Third is calm the resentment due to the recent killing in Nagaland. We have seen that there was a recent killing in Nagaland, और अगर AFSPA वहाँ से हट जाता है, तो people will be psychologically little peaceful that okay, now this is not there, now they will be relaxed. Next question which could be arised is that why AFSPA is so unpopular there. Why there are so many disadvantages we always keep on talking about more than the advantageous part. Even in newspaper, when you read about it, आपको negative ज़्यादा पढ़ने को मिलेगा than the positive aspects of it. So why is it so? The first reason would be human right violation by the army. Human right violation by the army. So we all know कि especially in Nagaland में तो again, like I've told you, that those people, they were under the shadow of this act from so many years. So it gives trauma to people when they see that the army, their own army, is violating their human rights. ठीक है, they are not doing justice with them. They are open firing on the suspect without even giving a warning to the suspect. So all these are the problems जो कि human right का violation करता है. Issue of fake encounters. So there was a report which came in 2012, and that report says that there were around 1,500 encounters which was reported. Okay, 1,500 fake encounters which was reported, and then there was even a committee which got constituted to look into the matters, and that even the committee reported that the petitioner or the fake encounter thing and the number of cases are true. So you can imagine the plight of it. You can imagine how big this thing is, the fake encounter thing is. Okay, now though we even have written proofs over it. Okay, next is poor checks and balances. So poor checks and balances, what do we understand by poor checks and balances? See, when we talk about poor checks and balances, this act basically gives the armed forces absolute power or to fire and open without giving, as I've told you, without giving any warning to the suspect. But ideally, it's not that there is no there is no law which says that there should be a coordination between the district administration and army. There is definitely a law which talks about that there is a coordination between the armed forces and the district administration so that the justice could be delivered. Okay? There is also a law which says that there should be a better communication or a coordination again between the central and the state government also. But at times we see that these rules doesn't get followed, or rarely these rules gets followed. Okay? So these are some of the problems where we lack in the checks and balances. Like for example, center once overruled this thing wherein the center had to consult with the state government, and then center imposed AFSPA in Tripura. This was the example when center overruled this law which was given, and I'm talking about 1972, the year 1972 ke bare mein baat kar rahi hu, and definitely there is a poor investigation of the entire issue. This is a newspaper cutting of 1978 wherein entire Manipur Valley was declared a disturbed area. Indian Express की ये news है, 1978 का ये newspaper का cutting है. Okay, so these are some of the points you have to remember while you are writing your answer regarding AFSPA. All right, chaliye, moving ahead with our next GS paper and next topic, of course. So now we'll be reading economy. The first topic is electoral bonds. Very very important, बहुत न्यूज में रहता है, एंड दिस इज अ एवरग्रीन टॉपिक. हमेशा ये न्यूज में रहता है. इट्स नॉट कि आपने अभी पढ़ लिया, नेक्स्ट ईयर यू डोंट हैव टू स्टडी इट. यू हैव टू स्टडी, यू विल हैव टू स्टडी इट एवरी ईयर. सो बेटर यू फर्स्ट अंडरस्टैंड द स्टैटिक पोर्शन ऑफ इट, क्योंकि कॉन्टेक्स्ट तो चेंज होते रहेंगे. बट इफ यू are clear with your static portion once, you'll find it very easy to catch up with your contextual part or your current affair part. Okay? So recently what had happened, our Chief Justice of India, he has assured petitioner that the Supreme Court will take up hearing of a pending plea challenging the electoral bond scheme. And this is not the first time that anybody had challenged this particular scheme. A lot of time, jab se ye shuru hui hai, people has been challenging this particular scheme. Now, before understanding that why people are challenging and what are the disadvantages and what are the cons of it, we will first understand what electoral bonds is. So electoral bonds, in simple language, it is basically ये एक financial instrument है through which we can give money or make donations to the political parties. That's the simplest definition you'll ever find. Okay? Next thing, or the next feature of electoral bonds is that they can be issued in the multiple of 1,000, then 10,000, 10 lakh, and so on, right? And there is no limit to it. Then who is the authority who issues it? So State Bank of India, SBI, is the authority who has given the power to issue these bonds. Next, if we see, the bonds are available for purchase by any person who is a citizen of India or incorporated or established in India. Okay? So not just the citizen of India, but if he is incorporated or established in India, can buy this bond for a period of 10 days each in the month of January, April, June and October, as may be specified by the union government. Next feature could be that it is not that only an individual can buy it. An individual can also buy it, and people jointly can also buy them. And the last one is donor ka jo name hoga, that will be kept anonymous, that won't be revealed. And this is the major controversial point, that whosoever is donating to any particular party, uska naam hi nahi bahar aayega, the name won't be revealed, and that is why it always remains in the controversies. So what are exactly the issues? The first issue I have already discussed, the anonymity factor, that the donor's name will not be revealed. Again, it can lead to corruption, it can lead to a lot many things, and definitely is the issue with the scheme. The next issue is asymmetrically opaque. Why is it asymmetrically opaque? Asymmetrically opaque means only one party can see it, the others cannot see it. Now, who can see it? The central government can see as to who the person or who the company is donating money to their party through through what? Through SBI. They can go to SBI, they can get all the details, but only the central government has this power to do this, not any other, or you can say not anybody else. No one can get this information, and that is why it is asymmetrically opaque. Only one side is visible. Okay, only, or you can say it is visible to only one uh, personality. Next is channel of black money. This is definitely a channel of black money. I'll give you a recent example of 7.5% capping. So initially there was a 7.5% capping which was kept for the donation on the corporates जो होते हैं, corporate donors जो होते हैं, उन पे 7.5% का capping लगाया गया था. Now this limitation of 7.5% has been eliminated, which again gives rise to the chances of black money. Okay, that it can be a channel for a black money, and again this anonymity thing also can lead to this black money thing. Okay, so this is electoral bonds. There is a lack of transparency, there's a lack of accountability. Anonymity wala point we've already seen, right? And all of this can lead to the corruption and the black money in our country. All right, so this was about electoral bonds. Up next we have a very important scheme. The next is RAM scheme, or we call it raising and accelerating MSME performance. MSME, we know, is the backbone of our country, and it has been really it's really badly hit because of the COVID. In fact, it is there was a report which revealed that 40% of our MSME, they lack the credit. I mean, they lack the financing. They do not have the credit or the finance to run themselves. So in order to mitigate the same, in order to help MSMEs, our government came up with this ramp, or raising and accelerating MSME performance. Okay? So it has been launched to support the various resilience and recovery interventions of the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. What is the objective, major objective? I have already told you, to get them or to improve the access to market and to credit. Kinka? MSME sectors का credit और market and credit दोनों ही उनको access कराना is the basic idea behind RAM scheme. Apart from that, it will also be improving the center-state linkages and partnership, through which MSME will be definitely benefited in turn, and it will also be helpful in issuing the problem of delayed payments, right? This scheme will also incur the problems of delayed payments with MSME sector and greening of MSMEs, right? So again, the same scheme this will be commenced in 2022. तो ये अभी से है. And another important fact, this World Bank. This is a World Bank assisted program. So again, a very important point, a very important factual point. UPSC can directly ask you this, whether it is assisted by World Bank or IMF, or they'll give you different options. Okay? And World Bank would be the answer. Some more provisions of it, that certain amount of loan will be given by World Bank, and rest our government is going to pay in the scheme. Another thing, that directly or indirectly, it is going to benefit 63 million MSME. Okay, and 5.55 lakh MSME specifically targeted for enhanced performance, right? COVID के बाद जो भी चीजें हुई हैं with MSME, this is to basically recover the sector and take them out from their issues they are facing, right? That was all about raising and accelerating MSME performance. See, even if they can even give you the easiest of the questions. For example, they can directly ask you what ramp is related to, and the options would be either it is related to MSME, or it is related to environment, or what is it related to. So even if you know the full form of it, the full form only contains MSME, so you will reach to your answer. So sometimes even remembering the full forms only can get you to the right answer, right? That's the point I wanted to tell you. Up next we have MSME, again a very evergreen topic. हमेशा ही news में होता है. Every season it is there in the news. So contextual part समझ लेते हैं. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved MSME for raw jute for this year. ठीक है? What is MSME? sorry, not MSME. Uh, I'm really sorry for this. This is MSP, minimum support price. MSP, minimum support price. So in short, in a very simple word, what MSP is, MSP basically is the rate, or is the is the rate given by the government to the farmers for their produce. This is precisely or simply what MSP is, minimum support price, to support them. And how is it calculated? इट इज बेसिकली कैलकुलेटेड कि जितना भी फार्मर्स ने इनपुट इसमें लगाया है उसका 1.5 times extra our government has to give them. And if we talk about the MSP, which is fixed twice a year on the recommendation of which committee? On the recommendation of CACP, that is, on the recommendation of CACP. ठीक है, CACP basically is an expert committee which gives, or which that recommends the MSP कि कितना MSP होगा. So basically this is the body which gives the farmers the remuneration and which maintains the stable price environment in our country, right? Now, which production cost are taken when we fix MSP? जब हम MSP decide करते हैं, कौन से production cost को लिया जाता है? So here CACP ने जो consider किया है, that is A2 plus FL and C2. Now you must be wondering what this A2 plus FL and C2 is. So A2 basically है कि whatever cost a farmer has incurred in terms of his, or while purchasing his seeds, fertilizers, pesticides. ठीक है, let me just take you to the black screen. Okay, so A2 would be the cost, you can say the cost which farmer has incurred while buying what all things? Seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. The list is long. ठीक है, when the farmers saw their crops, they buy all of these things. तो इसमें जो भी खर्चा आता है, everything should be inclusive of when we decide the rates of MSP. Second is FL. FL is directly nothing but family labor. जो family labor हमारा use होता है while we produce any crop is FL. C2 is a comprehensive cost. C2 एक comprehensive cost होता है, ठीक है, is a comprehensive cost which where rentals, remember rentals are also included, right? So this was about these three things which CACP has considered while deciding the rates for MSP. Okay, so next is, these are the crops which are covered under MSP. These are some of the kharif crops. Paddy, kharif, ऐसे 14 kharif crops है: paddy, ज्वार, बाजरा, रागी, maize, अरहर, मूंग, उड़द, cotton, groundnut, sunflower, soybean, sesame and niger seeds. So you have to remember, यहाँ से आपके दो questions बनते हैं. First, that what all are the crops जिनके लिए MSP मिलता है. Second, what are the kharif crops? UPSC can directly ask you this question, wherein they'll confuse you with some new crop and they'll put you in a dilemma whether it is a kharif or a rabi crop. तो यहाँ से आप, you can prepare for that question as well. For rabi crops, wheat, barley, gram, masoor, rapeseed and mustard, safflower and तोराई. तोराई का एक यहाँ पर मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ, जो तोराई के लिए हम MSP derive करते हैं, that is based on the MSP for the rape seeds and mustard, and from dehusked cotton on the basis of MSP of copra, right? And then there are some others, copra, dehusked cotton, jute. Sugar cane के लिए actually FRP is there, ठीक है, it's not MSP. Sugar cane के लिए we use FRP, fair and remunerative prices we use, right? So this is for sugarcane. So you can take a screenshot of it. This is a really important list. Next, Up next, we have PM Gati Shakti, National Master Plan, a very, very important scheme which has been introduced recently, PM Gati Shakti. PM Gati Shakti, in simple words, is nothing but a PM Gati Shakti. It has abhi introduced hua hai, that is why it was in the news. PM Gati Shakti is a multi-model plan. It is a multi-model connectivity plan. It is a multi-model connectivity plan, right? How it is a connectivity plan and what exactly it is going to connect, okay? What exactly this is for? So this is basically for infrastructure projects. Infrastructural projects. What are we going to do under PM Gati Shakti? This will be an umbrella program wherein all the 16 ministries, there are 16 ministries in our country which belongs to the infrastructural area. Okay? So all those 16 ministries will come in together, will integrate together and will plan and will formulate and will implement the infrastructural project together. ठीक है? So this is an umbrella scheme. 16 ministries को ये साथ में लेके आएगा, integrate करेगा, so that what can happen? Infrastructural projects जो हैं उनकी planning, उनका implementation can be done on time and properly, and definitely it will be really, really helpful for our economy if our infrastructure value will increase, right? Coming back to the slide, so PM Gati Shakti entails the geospatial mapping of everything in the country, different layers of map. We talk to each other, leading to integrated planning. ठीक है? And with this हमारा logistic cost, हमारा time बचेगा, हमारी logistic cost बचेगी, बहुत सारी चीजें बचेंगी, ठीक है? And our economy also will boost. So we've already talked about what PM Gati Shakti is and what are the significance or certain plus points of it, that it will be. अब क्या होगा? हर एक डिपार्टमेंट एक दूसरे के साथ इंटीग्रेट होगा, दे विल बी एबल टू ट्रैक व्हाट ईच अदर्स एक्टिविटी, ठीक है? और अगर कोई भी प्रॉब्लम होगी एक टाइम पे हम चीजों को सही कर पाएंगे, राइट? इट विल बूस्ट द लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी, इट विल ब्रिंग डाउन द लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट. ऑफ कोर्स अगर हम चीजें टाइम पे होती हैं, चीजें कोऑर्डिनेशन में होती हैं, तो लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट डाउन जाता है, एंड इंटीग्रेटेड प्लानिंग एंड रिड्यूसिंग इम्प्लीमेंटेशन overlaps. So these are some of the significance of PM Gati Shakti. I hope it is clear to you now. Up next, okay, so again everything is I've already told you everything. On 75th anniversary of India's independence, our Prime Minister announced this, and it is basically the project will become the source of employment also. Employment opportunity bhi ye provide karega. While we were talking about the significance part of it, I missed to tell you this, that it is going to generate the employment also, right? And the need, of course there is a need, because India needs to increase both the manufacturing and the export also. तो export हमारा बढ़ेगा तभी जब हमारी चीजें properly हो पाएंगी, right? And again, if you talk about more benefits, so this initiative will help us in the promotion of indigenous products also, ठीक है? हम उनको export कर पाएंगे. So these are some of the more the important points you can remember pertaining to PM Gati Shakti. All right. Up next we have is next paper, international relations, and the first topic itself is International Energy Agency, or we call it IEA. This got established in 1964 as per the framework of OECD, which is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, ठीक है? OECD हमें पता है ये एक इंटरगवर्नमेंटल इकोनॉमिक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है टू स्टिमुलेट द इकोनॉमिक प्रोसेस, इकोनॉमिक progress of the economic progress and world trade, right? And its headquarter is in Paris only. If we talk about the member countries of it, if we talk about the member countries, 38 member countries are there in OECD. और अगर हम इंडिया के पर्सपेक्टिव में बात करें तो इंडिया is not a member. India is not a member. Whatever body, whichever body you're reading, make sure that you read it with the Indian perspective also. ठीक है, एक ग्लोबल पर्सपेक्टिव आपको समझने की जरूरत है, बट इंडियन पर्सपेक्टिव भी जरूरी है आपको समझने के लिए, राइट? IEA का भी हेडक्वार्टर जो है वो पेरिस में ही है. एंड व्हाट आर द रोल्स एंड फंक्शंस ऑफ इट? सो यू ऑल मस्ट बी knowing about this oil crisis of 1973-74. So to overcome that crisis, only IEA got formed ताकि ऑयल्स की सप्लाई मेंबर कंट्रीज को अच्छे से करा सके, एनर्जी की सप्लाई बेसिकली करवा सके अपने मेंबर कंट्रीज को. उसी के लिए ये एजेंसी की फॉर्मेशन हुई थी. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट द कॉम्पोजिशन एंड एलिजिबिलिटी, देयर आर 30 members present at presently, right? And to be a part of IEA, one should be a member of OECD. ठीक है, and this is mandatory, but all OECD members are not IEA members. This also you have to remember. These are certain reports which IEA publishes. ठीक है, तो ये भी आपको याद रखना है. Very important for a prelims examination. They directly ask you ki who publishes or who releases the reports. These are some of the reports which gets released by IEA, International Energy Agency. The first is Global Energy and CO2 Status Report, World Energy Outlook, World Energy Statistics, World Energy Balances, Energy Technology Perspective. So ये आपको याद रखनी है. There is no other way. You have to cram them only. Next is India abstains from Human Rights Council vote to probe Russian actions. India ने अभी actually UNGA में elections हो रहे थे. So UNGA suspended Russia from Human Rights Council during a meeting which had held recently, and there were 94 members who voted in favor of this decision of UNGA, while 24 against it, and 58 members abstained voting. And we were the ones who abstained from voting regarding this decision. I want all of you to listen to this statement where we abstained from voting, and I'm going to play a video which I want all of you to listen to carefully. Okay, so yeah, let us see this video wherein we abstain from voting in the UNGA session.
On the resolution adopted in the General Assembly today. We do so for reasons of both substance and process. Since the inception of the Ukrainian conflict, India has stood for peace, dialogue, and diplomacy. We believe that no solution can be arrived at by shedding blood and at the cost of innocent lives. If India has chosen any side, it is a side of peace, and it is for an immediate end to violence. We continue to remain deeply concerned at the worsening situation and reiterate our call for end to all hostilities. When innocent human lives are at stake, diplomacy must prevail as the only viable option. Recent reports of civilian killings in Busha are deeply disturbing. We have unequivocally condemned these killings and support the call for an independent investigation. The impact of the crisis has also been felt beyond the region with increasing food and energy costs, especially for many developing countries. It is in our collective interest to work constructively, both inside the United Nations and outside, towards seeking an early resolution to the conflict. India has been at the forefront of protecting human rights, right from the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We firmly believe that all decisions should be taken fully respecting due process, as all our democratic polity and structures enjoin us to do so. This applies to international organizations as well, particularly the United Nations.
So, uh, I'm sure you all must have seen the reason why we abstain from voting there. I hope the reason is clear to you now. Now, if we talk about the human rights, just a second. Now, if we talk about the UNHRC, which is United Nation Commission on Human Right Commission. So UNHRC is basically this basically passes the non-binding resolutions on protecting, or you can say protecting, human rights, right? To protect the human rights. This is the main agenda. Okay. The headquarter is in Geneva, Switzerland, and the composition is 47 members are there, and the term would be 3 years of the members, and the countries are disallowed from occupying a seat for more than 2 consecutive terms. Right now, I'm sure you all, since you have seen that video, I'm sure you all must be, you can say, you all must have read to a conclusion. Some people or some critiques or some, you know. Thinkers are of the opinion that we should maintain a neutral stance in this situation. Okay, whether we should be with Russia or we should be with US, or we should whether vote in favor of Russia or we should not. So we should maintain a neutral stance, and that would be our win. And some of other opinion at the same time, some of other opinion, because as Russia is our friend, so we must do things in Russia's favor and all of that. I would want all of you to write me in the comment section that what do you think? What is your opinion? Whether we should go with it, whether this decision of our that we've abstained from voting was right or not, or what exactly we should do. What is your opinion on it? Right?
India has abstained on the resolution adopted in the General Assembly today.
Okay. Next one is war crimes. The next is war crime. Next topic is war crimes. Recently, what had happened? Germany, France, and other countries have accused Russia of war crimes in the town of Busha, just outside the Ukraine ka jo capital hai Kiev. Now, what is war crime? There is a definition which was given regarding war crime. International Criminal Court में जो Hague में, that defines the war crime as a grave breaches. विल अंडरस्टैंड ये किस चीज के ब्रीच की हम बात कर रहे हैं ऑफ द पोस्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर टू जेनेवा कन्वेंशन अग्रीमेंट which lay out the international humanitarian laws to be followed in the war time. Now, what are the breaches we were talking about? It actually means कि अगर हम deliberately target करते हैं civilians को, या deliberately ऐसी जगह target करते हैं where the mass destruction could happen, या फिर civilian casualty could be there in excessive amount, you can say, we call it war crimes. You all must have read about Geneva Convention also. Geneva Convention actually is a set of is basically a set of, you can say, 3 protocols and 4 treaties, right? So what happened at World War II from 1939 to 45? What had happened? That we've seen that there was, the civilians were brutally targeted. There were prisoners of war which were brutally, handled. So we saw barbaric scenes at World War II. So that was the time when we decided that we should set some humanitarian standards so that these things which is happening with the prisoners of war, with the civilians, should not happen. And that is when we came up with Geneva Convention in 1949. So this was basically to set the standard for the humanitarian grounds, humanitarian purposes. And in the Geneva Convention mein hi, the Article 147 of Geneva Convention talks about this war crime. Now, this is the timeline of the Geneva Convention, wherein actually 1864 se hi where it started, but actually the things were very weak. The provisions of that time were very weak and not clear. So we improved it, we improved it, we improved it further, and finally we reached a 1949, wherein we revised the Geneva Conventions and we came up with the better, more stronger, and more clearer provisions pertaining to the Geneva Convention. All right, this was all about this. Up next, we have Quad. So this is a group of 4 member countries. You all must be knowing the first thing first. Those 4 member countries is first is US. Kindly look into the map. Then Japan, then Australia, and India. These are the 4 countries which comes under this group. And what is the context, the recent context, that why it was in news? So experts have said that increasing both the Quad's membership and influence can serve as the basis of Biden's administration's strategy to check China's maximalistic ambition in Asia. Quad grouping hai kya? This is a group of four like-minded countries which came together. I'll tell you a little bit of historical background of it. You all must have heard of 2004 tsunami. So that was the time when all these 4 member countries came together, but that was not to form this Quad group. Actually, that was for that was to help each other in that during because of that tsunami. So that was wholly a humanitarian purpose. So that was the first time when informally they came together, but formally things started in 2006. So the timeline, if we talk about, 2004 mein tsunami happened, but 2006 mein formally things started regarding Quad. Okay, but 2007-8 tak aate aate there was a lag of 10 years from the side of Australia. There were certain issues from Australia, तो उसकी वजह से 10 साल तक चीजें नहीं हो पाई. Now things had restarted in 2017. Things had restarted in 2017, and we started working together again in 2017 pertaining to the common rights of the common you can say the interest of all the 4 countries. And if we talk about these countries, they have a common ground of being democratic nation. Along with, we also share a lot of common interest in the maritime trade and also in the Indian Ocean region, right? If we talk about the significance of this, so they are the like-minded countries and their members share a vision of an open and free Indo-Pacific. And we do not talk anything about China directly in this group, but definitely we are giving an indirect indication to the China that we 4 countries, we all are here to protect this region and to provide a security to this Indian Ocean region. Okay, so this is the Quad member countries and the significance of this particular thing. Okay. Up next, the next topic belongs to again our next paper, social issues. The topic is Stand Up India scheme. Again, it was launched by our government in 2022 only, so it is very recent. There are chances that it could be asked in your examination, so kindly pay attention. What is this scheme all about? Ye actually it got launched in 2016 only. Now that it has completed its 6th year, that is why it was in the news. So इसके completion पे 6 years complete इसने करे हैं. That is why it was there in the news. Okay, so this was basically to promote the entrepreneurship at the grassroots level of economic empowerment and jobs creation. So basically to empower certain underdeserved sections ताकि वो एक entrepreneurship या entrepreneurial फील्ड में जा सकें, ठीक है, अपने आप को एम्पावर कर सकें. इसीलिए हम इसके साथ आए, इस स्कीम के साथ आए हैं, ठीक है, wherein we'll be providing them financial help to certain underdeserved you can say underserved, नॉट डिजर्व, इट्स अंडरसर्व, जिसको अभी तक हमने उनको चीज़ें नहीं मिली हैं, जिनको हमने सर्व नहीं किया है जिस सेक्शन को, एंड द सेक्शन वुड बी SC/ST वुमेन सेक्शन, ठीक है, तो उनको हम हेल्प करने की बात करेंगे इस पूरी स्कीम में, राइट. एंड द ऑफिस ऑफ सिडबी एंड नबार्ड शैल बी द डेजिग्नेटेड स्टैंड अप कनेक्ट सेंटर्स, राइट. Eligibility की बात करें, who all are eligible for the scheme? SC/ST and women candidates, as I've told you, 18 years and above के जो age वाले हैं, all of them are eligible, and the loans will be given under this Stand Up India scheme. And only for the greenfield projects. You all must have heard of greenfield and brownfield projects. Greenfield projects मतलब जो हम project scratch से शुरू करते हैं, where in brownfield projects जहाँ पर काम already कुछ थोड़ा बहुत हो चुका होता है, we just improvise it, but greenfield में ही यहाँ पर आपको loan मिलेगा, and borrower should not be in default with any bank, of course. And the third and the last one is in case of non-individual enterprise. Suppose अगर आप SC ST या women directly जा रहे हो तो they will directly give you loan. Suppose you are not an individual, you are a group and you need a loan. So then what should be the condition? The condition is कि उस पूरे group में जो maximum share holding है, 51% share holding should belong to the women or SC ST group. That is the condition to give a loan. So that was all about Stand Up India scheme. Up next we have New India Literacy Program, a very important again NILP program. Education के मामले में education पे हमेशा almost every in every question paper of mains UPSC you will see some topic related with something related with education, something related with women empowerment. So education वाली चीजें बहुत important हो जाती है. You can definitely quote them as one of the examples in those education value questions. So NILP web we have started. This is a centrally sponsored scheme. Objective इसका क्या है? To support the state and the union territories ताकि हम literacy को promote कर सकें among which section? Among the people or the non-literates in age group of 15 and above. This is the point you have to remember. ठीक है, 15 या फिर उससे ऊपर वाली एज के लिए है ये. अगर आपने 2011 का सेंसस आपको याद हो, so 2011 के सेंसस में it was said that people or the people belonging to this section, there are around 25 crores people who are non-literates. तो और अभी तक तो ये वाला नंबर और भी इंक्रीज हो गया होगा. ठीक है, सो नाउ यू नो दैट व्हाई इट इज नीडेड बिकॉज द प्रॉब्लम इज ह्यूज. Now the scheme has 5 components. Let us first understand these 5 components. सबसे पहले foundational literacy and numeracy. The scheme will be providing you with the foundational course. ठीक है, आपको NCERTs बताए जाएंगे, पढ़ाए जाएंगे, तो foundation will be made. Next is critical life skills. Like for example, आपको digital literacy दी जाएगी. डिजिटल लिटरेसी के मामले में भी आपको चीजें कराई जाएंगी. नेक्स्ट इज वोकेशनल स्किल डेवलपमेंट. वोकेशनल स्किल डेवलपमेंट मींस यू विल बी प्रोवाइडेड विद द स्किल्स सो दैट यू कैन गेट अ एम्प्लॉयमेंट आगे जाके, राइट? सो वोकेशनल skills also would be given under this NILP scheme. Next would be your basic education will be provided, and not just that, the continuing education would also be provided, which means that not just आपकी basic schooling कराई जाएगी, but आगे जाके if you choose your arts, science and those subjects, that would also be helped. You would also be helped even then, right? So these are the major points of NILP scheme. If you talk about certain more salient features of this NILP scheme, so the involvement, which means how exactly are we going to achieve this scheme? कौन help करेगा? ये कैसे exactly how have we planned to implement this scheme? So the involvement would be from a lot of different sections. The students will be involving in it. ठीक है, voluntary basis पे students would be involved. Anganwadi workers, ASHA workers will be involved. Teachers would be involved. Retired person will be involved. A lot of people will be voluntarily contributing to the scheme. They would be teaching students basically. ठीक है, so school students, pre-service students of higher education, school teachers, Anganwadi, ASHA workers, all of them will be the part of it, right? And school is the major unit for the implementation of the scheme. And not just that, we will also be using online implementation scheme. तो online चीजें भी कराई जाएंगी through what? Through TV, radio, cell phone based free and open source app, portal, ये सब भी बच्चों को provide करा जाएगा of 15 and above age, right? And who will be implementing it? Actually, school will be the unit for the implementation of the scheme, and it will be a voluntary. It will be on voluntary basis, right? That was about the scheme. Up next, we have science and technology. And the first topic is genome sequencing, a very crucial topic, little difficult, little technical though, but I hope I'll be able to make you understand this. I also have a video for you so that you can understand it better. The context is we have recently completed this genome sequencing project. Now, our job is to understand this, what genome sequencing is. Actually, the word only tells you about what this is. Sequencing means हम कुछ sequence कर रहे हैं. We are trying to find the sequence of something, right? So it is basically figuring out the order of genome sequencing. When I talk about genome sequencing, it is basically figuring out figuring out the sequence of DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA nucleotides in a genome. Now, what are nucleotides in a DNA? न्यूक्लियोटाइड्स आपके पास होते हैं एडिनाइन, थाइमीन, गुआनिन, cytosine. At the same time, genome, we all know the human genome. If we talk about human genome, okay, so this is genome, right? Has 23 pairs of chromosome. We all know this. This is a basic science fact. ठीक है, अगर हम डीएनए की बात करें तो डीएनए में थाइमीन gets replaced with uracil. ठीक है, so whenever you see uracil, you must understand that we are talking about RNA. ठीक है, uracil होता है RNA में, whereas thymine is present in DNA. ठीक है, RNA is ribonucleic acid, DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, right? So coming back to our slide. So what we do in the genome sequencing or the whole genome sequences, so this is a reference genome and an individual genome. First we do is we break, this is a genome, we will break it into the larger fragments and we clone them. ठीक है, we make copies of them. ठीक है, and then ये जो break वाले individuals हैं, they will be cloned, right? And then they will generate 1,000 sequence reads, and then finally we will assemble them in a sequence, right? And individual genome, here again almost same thing we are doing. We will break the genome into the fragments. We have broken it, okay? And then we will generate million of copies of these sequence reads, and then we will align the sequence read into a reference genome, right? So this was about genome sequences. The most important and the basic question which might come to your mind is, why are we doing it? What is the significance of it? What is the use of it? See, only if you will be able to find out the sequence of a particular genome, ठीक है, you will be able to see कि what are the mutations which is occurring in this, what are the alterations or what are the insertions or deletions which is happening inside it, ठीक है, then only you will be able to track a particular disease, or maybe you will be able to come up with the cure of any disease. ठीक है, like for example in case of COVID also we did this genome sequences wherein we studied the entire genome. ठीक है, पूरे जीनोम को हमने स्टडी करा, तभी तो वी केम अप विद दिस डिफरेंट वेरिएंट्स के अच्छा भी ये डेल्टा वेरिएंट है एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज दोस डेल्टेंट्स वी वेरिएंट्स वी केम अप. ठीक है, वो पॉसिबल ही इस सीक्वेंसिंग की वजह से हो पाया. सीक्वेंसिंग में हम पता कर सकते हैं कि एग्जैक्टली कहाँ पर चेंजेस हो रहे हैं और हम उन चेंजेस को क्योर कैसे कर सकते हैं. इट कैन बी यूज टू क्योर अ लॉट ऑफ डिजीजेस, टू फॉर अ लॉट ऑफ साइंटिफिक स्टडीज. ठीक है, तो इन सब चीज़ों में हम इसको यूज करते हैं. So again, a video I have for you for your better understanding as to what genome sequencing is.
Genomic sequencing is a process for analyzing a sample of DNA taken from your blood. In the lab, technicians extract DNA and prepare it for sequencing. Within every normal cell are 23 pairs of chromosomes. Chromosomes are structures that house DNA. DNA is coiled into a shape called the double helix. The double helix can be unwound into a ladder shape. The ladder is made up of paired chemical letters called bases. Altogether, our DNA contains about 6 billion such paired chemical bases. There are 4 bases in the DNA alphabet: A, T, C, and G. In DNA, base A joins only with base T, and base G joins only with base C. To read the sequence of bases in DNA, samples are inserted into a sequencing instrument, where high-frequency sound waves break the DNA into smaller pieces that are only about 600 bases long. Special tags are added to the ends of the fragmented DNA. These tagged strands of DNA can then attach to a glass slide. In a sequencer, each piece of DNA is copied hundreds of thousands of times, which creates clusters of identical DNA fragments. Next, the sequencer reads the DNA one base at a time, using different colored tags for each DNA base. Special sensors within the machine detect the different colored tags. This sequence of colors reveals the DNA sequence of each fragment. Powerful computers piece together these individual DNA fragments and reveal the sequence of your DNA. Then a team of medical experts uses specialized software to analyze and compare the DNA sequences to identify the handful of variants that may be important for your medical care. Discuss the results of the sequencing of your DNA with your doctor and a genetic counselor.
Yep. So I hope now genetic or the genome sequences is clear to you now. Moving ahead with our next topic. Next topic is mRNA vaccine technology. mRNA vaccine technology क्या होता है? Let me tell you, let me make you clear with the basics of it. mRNA vaccine technology. You all must have heard of Covishield and Covaxin. This was produced by a Pune-based company and this was by Bharat Biotech. ठीक है, कोविड के टाइम में we all must have heard of these two. But what is mRNA vaccine? What is this new type, or what is this vaccine basically? What is this and what is the exact procedure of it and how do we make it? What is the process of making it? So, we know that there is a process in biology called transcription and another process called translation. This is simple basic biology, okay? So we all have DNA in our bodies. When that DNA gets transformed into mRNA, we call it transcription, okay? And now this RNA, when it gets transformed into the proteins, we call it the process, we call it translation. Okay? Since we are talking about mRNA, so what we do, we inject mRNA, we take mRNA, we inject into the, we actually first coat it with the lipid, as our cell wall is made up of lipid. So we coat it with lipid, we inject it, inject karne ke baad, it gets into the cell, right? It gets into the cell. Okay, cell में जाने के बाद it will start working. What it will do, it will translate into a protein. जैसे ये करता है, it will translate into a protein. तो mRNA में जाने के बाद it will translate into a protein. Now this protein, now what will happen to this protein? Our body will produce, our body will produce antibodies against this protein, right? And this is the basic technique, or this is the basic way how mRNA vaccine works. ठीक है, like for example प्रोटीन का हम एग्जाम्पल ले लेते हैं, कोविड का ही हम एग्जाम्पल ले लेते हैं. कोविड का प्रोटीन दैट इज स्पाइक प्रोटीन, ठीक है, और द सरफेस प्रोटीन. ठीक, स्पाइक प्रोटीन प्रोड्यूस करा उसने जाके, तो वो स्पाइक प्रोटीन के अगेंस्ट आवर बॉडी विल प्रोड्यूस इम्यूनिटी, हेंस, और एंटीबॉडीज अगेंस्ट दी स्पाइक प्रोटीन, हेंस वो कोविड इन्फेक्शन से इट विल immune us. ठीक है, even in the future if the same antigen impacts us or the same virus impacts us, since we have antibodies in our body, it will keep us immune from that particular disease. This is the simple logic, or this is the simple technique how mRNA vaccine works, right? I hope this is clear to you. So we have done, and significance you all are clear with. ठीक है, एंटीबॉडीज प्रोड्यूस करती हैं, हमें फर्दर, हमें इन्फेक्शन से बचाती हैं, इम्यूनिटी हमारी स्ट्रांग होती है. अगेन आई हैव अ वीडियो for your better clarity on mRNA vaccines as well. Please have a look at it.
developing vaccines is usually a very lengthy process, taking on average 8 years to get approved. Since a few years, we have the ability to create mRNA vaccines, which can be developed much faster. So how do these vaccines work? Are they safe, and how do they compare to traditional ones? But first you must understand how the immune system works. When a virus enters your body, it will attach itself to one of your cells and inject its DNA or RNA into it. This is like a blueprint for your cells, containing instructions on what the cell has to make. So in this case, the virus's RNA will tell your cell to make more copies of the same virus. They become factories, assembling new copies of the virus that can infect even more cells. But don't worry, our bodies have a defense system for foreign intruders. The immune system attacks any protein, virus, or bacteria that does not belong in our bodies. But it takes a few days for it to learn how to attack the intruder. Meanwhile, the virus factories are running non-stop, quickly replicating the virus and spreading it in your body. In other words, you start experiencing symptoms of whatever has infected you. After a few days, however, your immune system will have figured out how to attack the virus and will start producing antibodies. These attach themselves to the virus, preventing them from infecting more cells and marking them for destruction. As you can see, the immune system is remarkable, but it's slow to mount an attack. That is the reason why we can get sick in the first place. So to give it a helping hand, we developed vaccines. The main idea is to train your immune system to recognize and fight off an infection before it has occurred. Almost like showing your immune system a mugshot of the virus and saying, if you see this, kill it. There are various types of vaccines, but let's take a look at the new kid on the block, mRNA vaccines. To understand how they work, let's take the COVID-19 pandemic as an example. You might have seen pictures of the virus with its distinctive spikes. These spikes allow the virus to attach to specific cells in your body and infect them. Now, here's the key idea for the COVID-19 vaccine. What if we could train our immune system to recognize these spikes by having our own bodies produce them? To do that, researchers took the virus's blueprint, its RNA, and isolated the part responsible for producing the spikes. Armed with this blueprint, they created mRNA, or messenger RNA. This is a special form of RNA that can enter your cells and give them instructions. In this case, the RNA contains instructions to build the spikes of the coronavirus. Not the virus itself, just the spikes. So mRNA vaccines contain instructions for your cells that tell them to build a part of the virus in large volumes, almost like giving them a recipe to follow. Once this is happening, your immune system kicks into action and starts learning how to attack these intruders. Again, it takes some time for the immune system to fight off these spikes, but you won't get sick because it's only the spikes, not the virus itself. And that's it. Your immune system has learned how to attack the spikes of the coronavirus. It destroys all the spikes and even breaks down the mRNA vaccine itself. The only thing left in your body are special B cells or memory cells. These can linger around for months or years until the same virus infects you again. When that happens, the B cells can produce the correct antibodies right away, preventing the virus from spreading and making you sick. What's interesting about this mRNA technique is that it's relatively quick to develop a vaccine as soon as we know the DNA or RNA sequence of the virus. And secondly, because the vaccine only makes our bodies produce a tiny part of the virus, we cannot get sick from it. More traditional vaccines use weakened versions of the actual virus. This also triggers an immune response, but could also give you mild symptoms. Now you know how mRNA vaccines work, but don't take my word for it. Also,
So that was about how mRNA vaccines are developed and how they exactly works. Up next, we have Nipah virus. So you all must have heard about so many cases which was being reported in the news pertaining to Nipah virus. What's important for an examination perspective is to understand what is Nipah virus, its spread, its symptoms, and some of its preventions. So it is a zoonotic virus. Zoonotic virus is basically which spreads from animals to humans. The host of Nipah virus is bats. ठीक है. It first broke out in Malaysia. There is a city there's a place in Malaysia called Nipah. वहीं से ये नाम भी आया है. ठीक है. And spread. Let us just see this. So bat, I have told you, is the host. ठीक है, इसके ब्लड से या फिर इसके यूरिन सैंपल से या सलाइवा से, if any of this contaminates, or if suppose any animal, like for example pig, comes in contact with either what, blood, saliva and urine in contact, it gets infected by the Nipah virus, ठीक है, and if any fruit comes in contact, it again gets impacted by the, or it gets infected by the Nipah virus, and any human being which again which comes in contact with either with the animal, ठीक है, could be pigs, could be dogs, ठीक है, अगर हम किसी भी एनिमल के कॉन्टैक्ट में आ जाते हैं who is infected with the Nipah virus, we also gets infected with the same virus, or suppose we eat that contaminated fruit, तो उससे भी हमें ये कंटामिनेशन हो सकता है. अराउंड 40-70% जो है वो मोर्टालिटी रेट है इसका, ठीक है, एंड दिस इज बेसिकली the spread, how it gets spreaded, ठीक है. If we talk about some symptoms, तो encephalitis, it is basically brain inflammation, ठीक है, कुछ heart problems, कुछ respiratory problems, these are some of the common symptoms of Nipah virus. Next is prevention is same. If we keep washing our hands, if we can prevent coming in contact with such either with such animals, or eat or do not eat such contaminated fruits, or eat them wisely and nicely and after washing them properly, you know. So these are some of the preventions of Nipah virus, right? Up next we have Prakriti Green Initiative for Effective Plastic Waste Management Scheme. So एक और step में to eliminate the single-use plastic, we know our government has this mission to eliminate the single-use plastic by 2022, and in order to achieve the same, we've come up with what we've launched Prakriti. This is a mascot to spread greater awareness. ये बहुत awareness provide awareness aware करेगा ये लोगों को, so that they can adopt small changes in their daily routine or the daily lifestyle, ताकि single-use plastic को हम curb कर सकें, right? So there are few steps, or there are following initiatives which will be coming under this. The first will be National Dashboard on Elimination of Single-Use Plastic and Plastic Waste. Now, what is this dashboard is all about? So here what we will be doing, we will be connecting all the stakeholders, we will be connecting all the stakeholders, be it ministers, I mean all the ministries, everything we will be connecting, and so that we can track the process of the the curb of single use plastic. Second is EPR, or Extended Producer Responsibility. This is basically कि जो भी company ये produce कर रही है, it is their responsibility that they should recycle the plastic as well. Next up we have is mobile app for single use plastic grievance redressal. That is, we will have a mobile app, and this would be for the citizens to use, because it is our responsibility as well, not just our governments, but it is our responsibility as well, that we should also help our country to tackle the menace of plastic pollution. So there will be this app which will help the citizens to track the sale or the manufacture or the usage of the single-use plastic in their own locality or region, so that we can help curb it. Okay. Next is monitoring module for single-use plastics. Monitoring module will be for the local bodies, ठीक है, for the state government, for the panchayat, जो grass root पे bodies होती हैं उनके लिए होगा, so that they can also come up to help in this initiative. Next would be industrial production of graphene from waste plastic. तो waste plastic से हम चीजें बना सके, industries को instruct करा जाएगा, so that they can produce graphene using the waste plastic waste, ठीक है, which will promote more industries to come forward to upcycle the plastic waste. So these are some of the initiatives we have taken under Prakriti. Okay, now what is exactly the government strategy? Government की ये strategy है कि हम अलग-अलग steps से इसको अचीव करने वाले हैं. द फर्स्ट वुड बी द फर्स्ट कैटेगरी, वेयर इन हम जो बलून्स वाले जो बलून्स के जो स्टैंड्स होते हैं, ठीक है, या फिर बलून स्टैंड हो गया आपका, या फिर आप बोल सकते हो प्लास्टिक जो sticks होती हैं which we use in the balloons or flags, we will be eliminating them first. Second category में हम क्या करेंगे? Second category में we will be taking up, or we will be banning the straws, knives, ठीक है, packaging food में जो plastics use होता है, we will be banning them. The third would be we will be banning, or we will be curbing the non woven bags. ठीक है, सो दिस इज द स्ट्रैटेजी आवर गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू फॉलो. तो स्टेप बाय स्टेप हम चलेंगे ताकि चीजें धीरे धीरे कर्ब हो सके. राइट, ओके. अप नेक्स्ट, दिस वाज ऑल अबाउट प्रकृति. अप नेक्स्ट वी हैव नेक्स्ट टॉपिक फ्रॉम कल्चर, विच इज बामियान बुद्धा. बामियान बुद्धा रिसेंटली तालिबान ने अभी अफगानिस्तान में ये जो सिचुएटेड है, ये बोला है कि वी वॉन्ट बी लाइक वी विल बी प्रिजर्विंग दिस साइट, ठीक है, ऑफ बुद्धिस्ट हेरिटेज साइट विच इज सिचुएटेड इन मसायंग. अब ऐसा क्यों किया है उन्होंने? ऐसा नहीं है दैट देयर इज अ चेंज ऑफ हार्ट इन तालिबानियंस, ऐसा नहीं है. Actually they have a economic interest behind this. Actually Messaing जो ये जगह है, ये कोपर साइट है, and they are basically they are trying to have that some kind of investment from the China. तो इनका एक इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट है इसके पीछे, तभी ये, बिकॉज चाइनीज they are also culturally somewhere related to Buddhism. तो कहीं ना कहीं उस वजह से they are to get the economic investment or for their own economic interest, they are saying that we'll be preserving it and all of that. Not that there is a change of heart, क्योंकि उन्होंने बामियान बुद्धा को ऐसे पहले we all know कि कैसे blast किया था. So this is all because of the economic interest they have. Right, about Bamiyan Buddhas, if we talk about, so ये Hindu Kush mountain में situated along the rivers Bamiyan and is the key node for the Silk route. ठीक है, इसीलिए important है क्योंकि Silk route वाले उस पे है, ठीक है, on the way, and is emerging as a hub of both the commercial and the cultural exchange. That is why it is very very important, काफी ज़्यादा important है. 2003 में UNESCO ने इसको वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट्स में भी इंक्लूड कर दिया था. ठीक है, so this was about Bamiyan Buddha. So as you can see here, जो तालिबान ने यहाँ पर इसको डिस्ट्रॉय किया था ऐसे ब्लास्ट करके, दिस वाज पिक्चर ऑफ दैट. फिर उसके बाद थोड़ी द नेक्स्ट पिक्चर जहाँ पर क्लियरली आपको ये बामियान बुद्धा का दिखा होगा. नेक्स्ट एंड द लास्ट टॉपिक ऑफ द डे इज Vanyars. This is a community. Only one thing I'd like to tell you here, that there are certain PVTGs or certain backward communities. You have to do one thing. You have to make a list of all the PVTGs or all the backward communities which are there in the news. पूरे साल जितने भी news में होते हैं, you have to make a list. You have to list down that which community belongs to which state. ठीक है, or if there is any specific feature which is related with that particular what community. So that is what you have to do, and that this is the only reason कि मैंने ये वाला टॉपिक यहाँ पे डाला है. आपको ये लिस्ट बनानी है. You never know, match the following में आपको डायरेक्टली दे सकते हैं कि which this community belongs to this state, this community belongs to this state, and match the following. So Vanyar community, they belong to Tamil Nadu. That's the only reason. That's the only point you have to remember here, and you have to make list of all the communities. All right. So that was all for the first week of April. I hope it was helpful to you, and study hard. Thank you so much.